What would the world look like if people felt like they mattered? Welcome to the Lead with Love podcast, exploring what it means to lead with love in business and life. I'm your host, Jadah, and in this show, I'll share meaningful conversations to help you, the creative, the entrepreneur, the world changer, reach more people, go after your dreams, and serve your community with love. I appreciate you joining me. Now let's get cozy and start today's episode. We're here. It's episode number 1 of Lead with Love, and I am so excited to have you here. The intention of this episode was really to share my story on how I got to be where I am in this moment. And I thought the easiest way to do that was to invite my good friend, fellow Gemini, Nikki Elledge Brown, to interview me and unpack my journey. So I would love for you to listen in. And if any questions come up or stories that you would like me to go deeper on in a future episode, I would love to hear from you. So just make sure to go over to the show notes, jadahselner.com/101, and let me know if there is anything that you would love for me to expand on. I am so excited to be here with you in this moment. So let's get started.
Jadah, we're in your podcast now. Oh, dear Mimi. This is so exciting. Thanks for having me so that I can pick your brain on behalf of our buddy listening right now.
Love you so much.
This is really exciting for this moment to come to life because it seems like not so long ago we were sitting at the park bench in Sausalito dreaming up your podcast, and now it's happening. And I just want to, obviously we trust that whatever is meant to come out is going to come out in our conversation. And the cool thing is this is just the beginning, and you will have as long as you want to share whatever you want through this channel for your expression, which is exciting. So
yes.
How are you feeling?
I have to have a little confession. I wanted to get dressed up for you in this episode because this is actually the first episode I'm actually recording, and I'm still in my jammy pants and my jammy shirt with no bra. So I just want to thank you for saying no video so that we can be super comfy and cozy in this conversation. So sorry that I didn't shower, but I did brush my teeth.
It's only fitting because we talk about our day jammies a lot. So it's only fitting that we're in our usual uniform to have this cozy conversation. And yeah, that's the same with me in my podcast. I was like, well, I could do video, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, dude, path of least resistance. And so I just am doing a silent round of applause to just celebrate you for being at this point and you're doing the darn thing. And I'm just really excited to have a front row seat and witness where this goes. And with that said, let's talk about you. Let's begin. So we can kind of I don't really care too much about chronological order of things. And so I'd really just like to start with the most obvious question, which I'm sure you've covered a bit in your About episode, but for people who are specifically coming back to listen to this episode, just to learn more about where you're at and why this podcast came to be, just tell me a bit about your vision right now for Lead with Love and this conversation that you want to lead.
Yeah. So it's so interesting because it took me a couple of years to catch up with love is at the center of everything that I do, and why I was able to build a community online with Simple Green Smoothies, and how I show up in my conversations with my family. We're just this lovey-dovey family. And what I realize is in business, we've been compartmentalizing love, that, we value love in our relationships and our personal lives, but we actually don't bring it into our business lives. And I realized that's just how I show up and lead, whether it's, loving up on myself, loving up on my team, loving up on my community. That is where all of my filters and decisions come from. Being a value-based business leader is to lead with love first. And what is the most loving thing that I can do And so that's where my curiosity lies, is really unpacking that conversation from business owners, leaders, creatives, world changers that actually that is their filter too. And I think that we can operate in a different way where it's like, you know what? People matter. And I really wanted to explore that conversation deeper and not just my own way of being because it's come so naturally, but I know that there are others out there that choose to lead with love too.
So where do you think that comes from? You know, I mean, I can attest to knowing that this is not just something you say, it is something that you do. And so I'm just wondering, where does that come from? Like, where did little Jadah pick up that loving on people is a great way to be in the world?
Yeah. So I can remember when I was, it was probably around 9 years old, and we were Thanksgiving dinner conversation, with my family, and my grandma was there, and, she's hard of hearing. And I would just hear family members talking about her in a way of like she wasn't in the room. And I was like, don't talk about grandma like that. So there's this part of me that's just this love defender of like, don't treat people bad. And I think I've really taken that with me. Even in business transactions, it's like there's still a human on the other side. And, we deal with online businesses and, we use the computer screens to separate us, but there's still a human, a beating heart on the other side. And I feel this strong sense of also wanting to belong. So I'm half Black, Chinese, and white. I have my white grandma and my Black grandma. And I've always felt like I didn't quite fit in. Like I wasn't Black enough. I wasn't white enough, and always just kind of trying to find my place. And so I think that's a huge part of love, is that sense of belonging. Like I'm not sitting on the outside. We're not talking about people, that we actually feel this sense of connection and belonging.
Well, that's beautiful. And makes a lot of sense, and putting it into the context that way. And it really is amazing to think about like the themes of when we're so little and how they really just kind of lay the blueprint and the map. And so anytime we stray, and we just kind of lead back to it. What I would love to, again, we're just going to bounce around, and that's going to be okay. Like we do in our normal conversation.
Totally. Gemini squirrels.
Okay. So I want to just get the background of your entrepreneurial track and journey, because I know that right now this is a new chapter, where you're stepping out into what you are excited, talking about and how you want to be leading conversations. But it's not like this is your first chapter. There's a lot of history behind you. So can you spill the beans and catch us up to speed on your original entrepreneurial ventures and then how you've evolved into this current season of life?
Yeah. So I was not the kid entrepreneur that had a lemonade stand, but the first big word that I learned how to spell was when I was 9 years old. There's this common theme with 9. I learned how to spell the word entrepreneur. And I grew up with my father sharing his stories of selling bubble gum. So it's just like, it was always kind of these conversations that were built to me, but I didn't necessarily start, my own bubble gum stand or lemonade stand or anything like that. But it was always talked about, and my parents were very entrepreneurial. And so I was always that person that was thinking of ideas. My mom and I, when the Pinkberry came out, I would be the person and Pinkberry is a frozen yogurt shop that first started in Hollywood, California, and the lines were just like out the doors. And I was like, whoa. And I would do the math. Like I would count, like how much does frozen yogurt cost? How many people are in line right now with us? So that's always been something in me where I would like see an idea or I'd get inspiration and I would do the math too, which is so interesting, that even though I talk about leading with love and the numbers will follow, I still think about the numbers. Those are just as important. And my mom and I were going to start this frozen yogurt shop in Hawaii called the Green Swirl. We purchased, we had an LLC and a domain name, and we even got logo designed, and we even looked at physical space, but it never came to fruition. So it was just an idea baby that came and then went. Yeah. But when my husband and I moved to Kauai in 2008, Zoe was just 13 months old, and we were expecting him. He got a real estate license to start working, but this is 2008. And this is when the economy crashes. And we were just spending our savings. And it's just me being that creative, like, problem solver. I'm like, what do we do? And I was like, it's really hard to get jobs in Hawaii unless you want to work in tourism or create your own business. And so that was kind of the pressure cooker for us. Was we were running out of money and we were running out of ideas on how to make a living on the island. So I decided that we would start a play and learning center for kids in Kauai because I have this toddler daughter. We would go to bookstores and she would just be tearing books down from the shelves. And I'm like, no, Zoe, no, no. And just like chasing her all around. And I was like, I just want to create a space where I get to say yes to her, that it's a yes zone for her. Mm-hmm. So my first business idea really came from just solving my own problem and saying, you know what, I bet you there's more people that want this. And so I had a mom's group at that time called Ohana Mamas. And I was like, I already have access to a bunch of moms. And, you know, this was me being a natural community builder and having these group of moms. And so it's almost like we had instant customer base because I'd built this free group up through meetup.com. And really that was just to solve my pain of being lonely. I didn't have any friends on island. And we started Little Sprouts Playhouse. And that was kind of the first entrepreneurial, like physical inform. It was actually a brick and mortar business that my husband and I started working on together, and we got amazing Yelp reviews. And the thing that happened for us was the business model needed to pivot. So I wanted a space where parents came to play with their kids and stay with them. But what we learned was parents actually want to drop their kids off and go do other things. And so we pivoted, you know, we were being flexible and open, and we created a Montessori inspired curriculum with a friend to have a play and learning center for kids between 12 and 4 where parents would drop them off. And it went really, really well. We could have expanded on that, hired more people. But what we learned was we don't want to watch other people's kids. Well, like I didn't, you know, and we had Zoe who was like pushing kids out the door and just like, you know, not great marketing. She didn't want to share us with all these other kids. And so we actually ended up sending her to a different preschool because she was wreaking havoc inside the Play and Learning Center. So we pivoted. And it wasn't aligned with us. I mean, my husband and I, we were fighting over money. We didn't have, my husband was working probably like 3 to 4 or maybe even 5 random gigs as we were building this brick and mortar business. And it was just too many hats that we were wearing. So we had to just close it down, liquidate, and you know, I actually applied for University of San Francisco because I needed a plan B or plan C or plan D or whatever that was. And I actually got in. And so that's why we moved from Kauai to California and living with my in-laws for 6 months. So that was the initial start of my entrepreneurial journey. And even though some people might look at that as a failure, you know, that we closed down, I really look at it for my husband and I, that it was such a confidence booster and like we can create anything. Like we opened up our own business. People gave us money in exchange for services and adding value to their lives. And so I didn't look at that experience as a failure. I just looked at it as experience and a confidence builder and like, wow, I can solve problems and create solutions for other people.
Well, yeah. And it's information. And I mean, most people don't just start and give it a go with a brick and mortar business, you know, like it's a different experience. And we can jump along just to the lessons that you learned from there. But I'm curious, I just want to rewind. Where did you grow up? So you were in Hawaii and then you were in California. So where were you like around the planet?
Yes.
In the 90s and 2000s.
So I was born in Sacramento, California, and I spent my elementary school years in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is actually where I'm like full circle back in the East Bay again, which is crazy to me. And then I spent my middle school years in South Florida. So in Miami and Coral Springs, which is close to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And then I spent high school in Las Vegas. And when I graduated high school a year early, I moved to LA to start, taking some college classes, and my parents are like, I'm not a military brat. Like people were like, were your parents in the military? And it's just like, no, they were just young and wild and just always starting something new. Yeah. And so I've always had a hard time of like, where am I from? So I consider myself a California girl, but I lived probably the longest I've ever lived was in Los Angeles. And that's where actually I met George, my husband.
Okay. That was my next question when Georgia Boy came on board.
Yeah. So we met in 2003 working for an educational theater program through Kaiser Permanente. And what's interesting about the theater program is I actually auditioned for it and I didn't get in LA. And so that year I also auditioned for the same theater program in Northern California. And he didn't get in. Like I got through all the callbacks and different things, but he didn't get in. And George had seen me audition in that LA year. And he's like, I hope she gets in. And he didn't get in. And then the following year, I went ahead and auditioned again for the LA one. And I said, if I don't get in, I'm moving to New York, because I was really into spoken word poetry at this time and New Eurekan Cafe and all of these things. And I got in. And when George, like day one of when, everyone starts, he's like, she got in. So, I mean, I had no idea, that he was checking me out, but it's pretty cool to know that he like saw me a year before and I didn't get in.
Yeah.
Also I think that's something like I'm not afraid to try and try and try again. Just having that resiliency to like, oh, I didn't get it. Let me try again. And I don't think everyone, always has that stamina to kind of stay in and keep trying for something that they really, really want.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say that definitely shows that your persistence pays off. And it wasn't that you were taking it personally. You were just like, okay, well, I still want this, so I'm still going to go for it. So you were doing that. And then what prompted the move to Kauai in the first place?
So having Zoe, she was born in LA in 2007. And I thought I was going to be the mom that's like ready to like go right back to work. And everyone's like, oh my goodness, you're going to want to, come back and have a break from the baby. And I had a 4-month maternity leave. And I loved going to like the music classes and then waking up, early in the morning, nursing her, and then going back to sleep and not starting her day till 10 a.m. I was like, this is awesome. And then having lunch with friends from my mom's group. So when I went back to work, I was like, I cannot be away from her. So I wasn't ready to be away from her yet. So I actually stepped away from that position that I'd been working for 5 years as an educational theater performer. And I was just juggling babysitting on the side where I could bring Zoe to work with me. So that's kind of become the theme of how all of these businesses came to be, was there needed to be flexibility where she could be by my side. And that was like a really big intention for me in having the business actually be something where she could be there. And then getting into the online business world, I was like, wait, this is even better. Not having a physical space is even better. But George was working for that company. I mean, he ended up working for them for over 13 years. And I was just like, I think you're going to age out soon. Like, you can't keep playing like an elementary school student, because our programs were like, he was like a Nightmare on Puberty Street. I was in an HIV STD prevention play called Secrets. And I was just like, who's going to take care of it? Like, I wanted him to just like financially take care of the family. So it was really me that made that push of wanting to be close to my mom, because she had just moved to Hawaii a couple of years before. And there's just something when you become a new mom where you're just like, I want my mommy.
Yes, that's definitely a blessing. It's so cool. Now that we just moved back, and having my mom 10 minutes away is not lost on me. What a gift that is. Okay. So I'm glad you answered that, because I was also going to rewind and ask what is educational theater performing includes. So now I want to see pictures of this day. It's important work. And I thank you both for your service, because
thank you.
I'm sure there's big aha moments facilitated from your years performing. Okay.
Totally.
So let's now track along to, you close it down and you move back to California. And let's talk about how you then got into your first online businesses. spoiler alert, because I actually know how this story goes, but let's document it for your podcast.
Yeah. So, it was 2011. We moved back. My plan was to go to school, and I was enrolled in my classes at University of San Francisco. My major was performing arts and social justice. I was so excited because I've just been on this 10-year college plan, just like never finishing college. And the plan was just stay with the in-laws. And it was just not working out. And I knew that I couldn't stay there and raise our daughter there. We were in a house full of 10 people. And so I actually opted out of going back to school. I had already given the money and I got a great scholarship, but I released that because I was like, we can't afford childcare and my husband working and me commuting to San Francisco to go to school. So the decision was, let's move into our own apartment. I'll watch Zoe, you go to work, and we'll just figure this out. And times were hard at this time. I mean, we were negative in our bank account. We were $42,000 in credit card debt from just the previous business. And I just I didn't know what was next. I just knew I had to figure something out. We had borrowed money from a friend just so we could have furniture in our apartment. And I'm so thankful that I was able to pay her back. And my mom was co-signing on our lease, just almost feeling like a kid again, right? That needing that extra support from people during this time, having a family in this way. But my husband's aunt, her name is Maria Veloso. We call her Annie Tootie. She had been building, an online business, and she'd been telling everyone in the family about it because she became really successful. And she was in the age of e-zines and the e-books and, in an e-zine, we would call it a newsletter now. Mm-hmm. And she was always just inviting people to learn more about what she does. And at my time, I was like, no, I'm going back to school, or I have this business. But then when I had there was no plan D, E, F, I was like, mm-hmm. I just want to learn more about what you do. And so I said, could I intern with you in Beverly Hills? I just want to look over your shoulder. I will pick up your dry cleaning. I will get you Starbucks. You don't have to pay me. I just want to see what it is that you do. And it's crazy because I was actually the first person in the family to ever tell me more. And I'm willing to see what it is you do. And so for 2 weeks, I stayed in her house and I looked over her shoulder and she was like, I'm going to send this newsletter out. I have this email list and I could buy a car. And I was like, whoa. I was like, I want that. Yeah. And so my wheels just started turning of ooh, what is something that I'm actually passionate about that I could create my own e-zine and send a newsletter out and be able to buy a car. And so that was kind of the light bulb moments went off for me during that time. And the crazy thing is, that's also when I got my first green smoothie. So she introduced me to green smoothies and to the online business marketing world. Yes. And I think what was so inspiring about spending time with her, I would be in her car and, she would just unpack all of her stories and how she was always up to some different business idea and everyone was kind of judging or criticizing her of what are you up to now? And I was like, oh my goodness, I can so relate to you because I'm constantly that person that's always up to something new. What is Jadah doing now? And just to release that criticism of what the outside world is thinking of when you're experimenting and trying new things all the time. And that was just really helpful for me to see what was possible. And I think that's a big part of my why too, is representation, is just showing what is possible. Because when I see people that I'm connected to, or I can touch or see or talk to, I feel like it's so close and so real and so tangible. And so that's me really stepping into this next chapter, even is just to be a representation, a proof of possibility that it is possible to be a mom, to be a wife, to be a woman of color and build a business, travel the world, have that flexibility and time to really, be with my family and to Netflix binge on New Girl for all day if I want to on a rainy day.
That is also a gift. But I just want to highlight the humility and just the willingness. And I think that's something that people who don't know you well would just gloss over or presume isn't there, but this side of you where you went for your third audition, you know, after not being accepted or chosen or whatever twice before. And the fact that you were like, you don't have to pay me. I will go get your Starbucks. I will pick up your dry cleaning. I just want to learn at your feet, you know, and being so willing to just like roll up your sleeves and get in there to learn and then do that. That is a huge part that if people are just looking at your highlight reel, it's easy to just be like, oh, well, I mean, surely that came easily or just fell into her lap or something. And you're like, no, it's actually, this all came from your just desire to learn and then go for it. And so with that, let's talk about what you did after you were learning about this whole online world and the possibilities of building an online community and monetizing that. Then what was your first foray into your own online business experience?
Yeah. So, you know, my daughter was, I think, 4 at that time in 2011. And I was like, a parenting e-zine is what I would create, you know, talking about potty training. And I have my toddler drinking, you know, smoothies with spinach and kale in it. Like I can just share all of these things that I do as a parent. And so that's what I started looking for. And the cool thing is Annie Tootie actually hired me to become a part-time virtual assistant. She had never had one before. And I got paid $15 an hour. I think I was making like $600 a month. So now I have this flexible gig where I can, you know, work on the computer and still be there for Zoe. And so I wanted to create this parenting newsletter, and I was like, who can design the newsletter header for me? And someone who was in my mom's group a few years before in LA, I met her in 2007, 2008. She posted some website designs that she had just done, and that she is Jen Hansard, who became my business partner. But at that time, I had just hired her I was like, can you create a graphic like this? I'm trying to start this newsletter. And she's like, normally I charge $150, but I will give you the friend discount for $75. And I was like, sweet. And so I shared my vision with her of wanting to have, you know, just this information and resources for parents and how to just be more eco-friendly and creative and present and unplugged. And she really bought into the vision. And she had always thought about creating a blog, you know, like parenting blogs that she had been looking at. And so she actually just proposed to me, like, would you consider partnering together? Like I could design out all the website stuff and you wouldn't have to pay for that. And then you can focus on more of the marketing and monetizing. And I remember just like going to my husband and I was like, I don't know if I want to, because I know like that means 50-50, you know? And I remember how much money Annie Tootie was making. And I was like, but like, if I do it by myself, like I'll get all the money. And George and I, yes, all the money. And then George and I just like, we prayed about it, and her husband was a pastor and he's like, we can trust a pastor. Like, so I was like, let's go, let's do it. And so that's really where, and she actually helped me come up with a name for it because she was following Design Sponge. And I was like, this is the family site. And she's like, what about Family Sponge? And I was like running with it. And I think when that name got passed over, there was a part of her that was like, ooh, I really like that. And I want to be a part of that too. And so we emailed each other. Like there was no legit contracts or anything. It's like, this is what I'll work on. This is what you'll work on. And like, let's just go to town, start throwing spaghetti at the wall and figure things out along the way. So our goal was always to monetize this business. And I was just like, it's ebooks and affiliate marketing is what I know from my aunt. And so that's what we were just trying to figure out for a really, really long time. And we actually weren't creating any revenue from it. We thought about a potty training ebook. And then I was like, what about a green smoothie ebook? You know, our kids are so healthy, they haven't gotten sick. And so we went forward with that idea. It was like, we're going to write a green smoothie ebook. And I told one of my friends about it. And this is a time when Instagram was just getting started. And she was like, you should post green smoothie recipes on Instagram to help promote your green smoothie ebook. And I was just like, we're already on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Like, I don't want to start another social media platform. It was already feeling overwhelming. Mm-hmm. And again, I still had the resistance, and then I still did it anyways, because I'm like, what the heck? Like, let's just see what happens. And even, you know, my friend, business partner, Jen, like, she's like, I'm not going to deal with that. Like, I'll just keep working on our family sponge stuff and you like run with that. And so I just ran with Instagram on my own and just kind of just really dived into this whole social media world and got really consumed and started learning about the interaction and community building. And we started our Instagram account in July of 2012. And by December, we went from 0 Instagram followers on the Simple Green Smoothies Instagram account to 30,000 followers. Wow. And that was kind of like the light bulb moment of, I don't think that it's just parents that are following us. And it's going to be really weird if they come to a parenting website with all these arts and crafts when all they want is a green smoothie ebook. And so we made a decision to create a website that supported the Instagram account. And that's kind of the business, and the website that was never supposed to be was created just from that insight and feedback from like, here's where the momentum and where the engagement is coming from. It's not coming from our parenting blog or social media accounts.
So let's take a look, like from a 2018 view, look back and kind of recap the growth and where you are now in terms of, you know, shifting partnership and all of that, because then I want to just ask about your lessons of leading with love and love over metrics style lessons that you learned, because Simple Green Smoothies grew fast. It kept growing. It wasn't just, okay, 30,000 followers. So catch us up on what happened next after that.
Yeah. So we grew, you know, basically our Instagram following in the first year, it grew to over 200,000 email subscribers. Wow. And then by the time that I exited, we were over 400,000 followers on Instagram, over 355,000 email subscribers, and over 300,000 Facebook fans with 1 million page views on our website per month. So that's the growth that came. And it didn't come from A/B testing or measuring conversions. People are always like, what's your opt-in conversion rate, or what's the best one? And I never thought about that stuff ever. And I never had these metrics of like, I want to grow to 100,000 followers. Like, it was my like love over metrics and building that community was like, I'm just going to add as much value and love up on these people as much as possible. And I talk about no comment left behind, right? When someone takes the time to comment, that I would respond back to them. So we grew all of that without having to measure or create these number goals. We just grew it from loving up on our people and remembering that there's humans on the other side. And so instead of investing in some super smart statistic data person that loves to geek out on numbers and spreadsheets, we invested our time in community happiness specialists, like people to continue to respond to those comments and keep that going versus hiring some smart sales funnel marketing stuff going on behind the scenes.
Right. Okay. So it's easy for someone who's listening. I'm playing Oprah right now. On behalf of my listener, I have a question, because I'm like, it's easy for, and I've experienced this in my own way with my business too, where people are like, well, right, you can say that because you did end up having the metrics. So it's easy to be like, well, I just focused on loving my people and then it just grew. It's like, but you're at those numbers. So would you still be saying that if you had a smaller list or whatever it is? But I'm really curious because you genuinely believed that. So what are other ways, like what does actually leading with love look like in the community building piece? You say no comment left behind. So you were really investing in making sure if people were taking time to leave comments, then someone would go and engage. But what are some other tangible examples of things that you did? And then were you ever tempted at least to be like, well, I mean, we're at like 260, it would be pretty cool to get to 300,000 or whatever it is, you know, like, and if so, what was the mindset flip where you could be like, yeah, but everything has come from just focusing on these as our metrics for now, you know?
Yeah. So, you know, tangible things that we did, it was always in that space of service, right? To obviously being a smart online business marketer, we wanted a free opt-in, right? Something that attracts our dream customers to us, you know, potential dream customers to us. And so the thing that really took off for us was our free 30-day green smoothie challenge. And that's what helped build the list. And we didn't know if it was going to work. We tried to partner with other people who had like big Facebook following. And so we were trying to like cross promote and leverage, and they never replied to us. And we're like, I guess we just have to do this on our their own. And so there's pieces that I do believe timing, being on Instagram early was definitely something that was very helpful for us. And also doing something differently, because we weren't the first ones to talk about green smoothies or green smoothie recipes, but I knew the differentiators for us. Like, we're going to focus on really good design, which makes the user experience makes it better, right? Like, you can make a lot of money without great design, but it's for the people, like, to make that experience feel good, the vibe of it feel welcoming and inviting. And like, I just want to come back here. Those are the comments we would get. We're like, I just want to come and look at your website. Or like, Jen did a really good job of translating our Instagram photos to make people feel like they never left Instagram when they came to our website. And also that free 30-day green smoothie challenge, we definitely thought about charging for it the second time, because we're like, people are getting so many amazing results. They're losing 5 to 7 pounds, and like, we should charge for this. And we worked really hard. This is a month-long challenge. And so we actually considered charging for it. And then I was like, you know what? This is why we're growing so fast. And this is why it's so easy for people to share us with others, is because it is a free give. It's so easy to spread something when you just add so much value and people are getting transformation. They're crediting you for the results. They're going to go tell more people about it. And it's an easy entryway in. So I always say, make your free opt-in better than your paid offer, because it's like just adding that extra value of service up front for free just builds that relationship equity over time. It's the same thing as dating, right? Just like show all the stops before, you pull out the ring or anything like that. Like, you've got to like court your community. And that's what we really did, was we spent a lot of time in our free offers to our people instead of focusing on just making money right away.
Do you think that's shifted at all? Or, because this is a place where people get stuck, and it's like, well, how much value do I put in my free stuff as opposed to my paid stuff? And if I give them so much in the free stuff, are they just going to be like full bellies? They have no hunger for the actual product or service or whatever. So what are your thoughts on this now?
Yeah, I think attention span has shifted over the years. So, I wouldn't necessarily do a 30-day challenge in the future. I'd make it shorter, just because there's so many more things out there for people to look at and consume. And as technology increases, like, our connections to each other decrease, and just the focused attention. So I think that's definitely shifted. But I do feel that filling them up with like the appetizer, I think is a good thing, because they're like, that was so good, I'm ready for the next meal. So it's like such an intricate dance of making something free and valuable that you become known for. It makes it easier for people to spread you.
Yeah.
and I don't, like, spread you sounds weird, but it's just like to like spread the word about you.
Like almond butter on toast.
Yeah. Avocado smash. Yes. So I think that, like, it's so counterintuitive to do that, because you feel like you're over giving. But I think there's also a dance, because sometimes people just only do free because they're just so afraid to sell. And I will say that I was neither of those. Like, I believe that selling is service, and it's a disservice to not share this thing that might change some people's lives. And so I think coming from that place of, I can give you something for free, and I can also sell you something. And I know not everyone is going to want to pay. And I remember getting that first email where someone was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that you're charging for this. And I just wrote this really long, loving response of like, I totally get it. Here are all the free things that we offer. I know not everyone can make this type of investment, so that's why we have these free things. But we really want people to invest in themselves and to kind of put a little bit of money on the line. And like, just imagine like a magazine. We don't get mad at magazines or TV shows, It's like, that's how they pay the bills, is those commercials and those ads and different things. But we just get a little bit more attached because it's like we're real people behind. And it's just, I don't know. I think we get a little stuck behind that a little bit.
I bet that's shifting too because Netflix, so we don't even deal with commercial. Or once DVR came, and then because I'm like, I can't handle, we got to mute commercials if there's a commercial. I have zero tolerance policy, and I don't like. I know some people love to listen to commercials just for the whatever, interested in advertising or something, but I do wonder if that's changing too, and people are like, or if it's a site where there's a whole bunch of ads on the site, and it does affect the user experience too. But when you do it in a graceful way, that feels so good because you've given so much value up front. That's totally true because that's what happened early on in my business too, where it was like the free stuff was so good that people were tagging me left and right and sharing my stuff just because they wanted to. There was no affiliate motivation. There was nothing. It was just like, this is so good. Oh my gosh, y'all have got to check this video series out. And it was like, yeah.
I love that you shared that, but if it's so valuable, you'll take it in because I have the no commercial policy too, except for This Is Us. Like I'm watching that and my husband and I, we sit in their bed and watch the episode and we go through all the commercials and I'm like, potty break. Yeah. Grab a Clementine right now or whatever. But it does make the consuming process a little bit longer, but because it's so good that we're willing, we're willing to like take on the commercials for that.
Yes. Okay. Let's talk about the book and what that whole experience was like because y'all kept growing and word of mouth was spreading and it was just growing. What was that whole traditionally published process like for you? And how will that inform future books that you birth?
Yeah. So it was such a cool experience. One, we'd been approached by a publisher early on and I met with them over lunch and we actually said no because we knew that a big part was we needed to create our own sustainable income before doing a book because we knew a book deal would just be a one-time payment and that's it. And so we decided to focus on building our community, building our email list, creating valuable products for them. And we chose the quarter that we would start looking for, a literary agent or a book publisher. And then we, interviewed a couple of literary agents and we picked one. He's like, I reached out to you guys a couple months ago and your team was like, they're not focusing on books right now. So it's just like the power of focus, I think is really important and choosing to say no and also welcoming those projects at a time that feels right and aligned for you and your business at the time. And I feel that part of how I do business works really, really well for me. It's like, I want to do this, but not yet. And I'm going to choose the timeline of when that happens. And us meeting, like doing, they call it like the rodeo, where we actually went to New York and met over 13 publishers and walking into all of these different publishing houses was one of the most memorable experiences of my life. It was such a cool process to meet all these people where we felt like we were just like dating, right? Yeah. Like, do you like me? Do we like you? Yeah. And it just really gave, Jen and I such a like confirmation of like, wow, we did it and really valued the two parts that we brought to the table, right? Like she really brought on that branding experience, the visual vibe and the community building, like both of those things together really made our book wanted by a publisher. So to have 13 people auctioning, the book was such a cool process and being able to choose, the publisher that we wanted to go with. And it was just one of my favorite experiences ever. And to just like seeing all these different bids coming in and then the actual like signing the book deal. And then we actually have to write the book. That was so hard for me. It was grueling. We committed to us actually writing the book. So we didn't have like ghostwriters or anything like that. And I was just like, do I want to talk about chia seeds? I just don't want to write about this, the health benefits of chia seeds. Yeah. And I took so many like writing getaways where I would just go to a hotel locally and like just had to remove myself from my house to just like surround myself with books and inspiration. Jen and I did like a 13-day book retreat in Nashville together and just trying to get away and get it done. And I remember the final turn in. I was up and my family was going to school. Like I was still up. It was brutal, but it was like, it is going to print. It has like feedback, notes, everything have to come back now, like speak now or forever hold your peace. Yeah. And so I've never done that in my life, but I was just like falling asleep on my floor. And then I was just like, turn it in, it's done. So yeah, the behind the scenes of the writing process can be brutal and not as sexy and creative and airy as, you expect it to be. Yeah. And what I've learned about myself is anytime something's going to be presented to the public where I can't edit or change it, I put a lot of pressure on myself. And I did the same thing with speaking at World Domination Summit and my TEDx talk. There's just so much pressure that I put on myself when I'm like, the world is going to see this, not just the 300 people in the room, but like anybody could get access to this.
Yeah. So what's your experience with that once the things are out there? And let's make sure you make a mental note to link to each of these talks and your World Domination Summit talk and everything, and the book, of course. Let's check out the book, people. I remember taking a selfie. You remember when I sent you the selfie when I was at Target? I was like,
and that's just so wild for me to go into bookstores to this day and like see the book in the bookstore. But there's also this thing, once it's completed, you have all of this on the line, so much pressure, so much creative output. And then it happens and then it's just done. Like that's literally like, sometimes I'm like, I don't even feel like a published author or feel like I spoke on that stage. It's so fascinating how we are as humans that it kind of just like, okay. On to the next. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that and being on to the next, because I want to ask you what you see and feel as your zones of genius. And I'm also curious, and I want to challenge that the back end of the book. I mean, I haven't written my first book, so whatever, everyone can throw tomatoes at me. But I'm like, I feel like if we're writing about what we're excited about, it's not always going to be glamour, easy with, fairies flying around and dropping inspiration in our ears, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that hard where you're literally like researching the benefits of superfoods and chia seeds and stuff like that. So I would like to think that your next book is going to be a lot easier in that respect, but let's talk about it. Like, what do you consider to be your zones of genius, the things you're most excited about, which is what led you to end up exiting and selling your half of the company?
Yeah. So I would say using my voice is one of my hugest, like being able to speak and interact with others, whether that's from a coaching perspective or just jamming with my Gemini besties on Voxer. I am a verbal processor, and I do believe that there's power in my voice and just speaking my truth. It's also one of the hardest things for me. Like I always get this like, that tension in my throat when I start telling the truth. But that was actually a huge aha in 2013. I went to a 2-day mastermind weekend with Jonathan Fields, who's a good friend, mentor of mine. And I got really clear that I need to be using my voice. So I've built this online business and we have all these social media followers, but I'm not using my voice to connect with the community. We had built this digital e-product based business and I felt like I wasn't being expressed. And so I got clarity around that. I was like, we've got to do webinars or something or videos because that's where I shine and feel most lit up. Which is why podcast is like, this is why it's happening. It's like for me to really operate in my zone of genius and use my voice and just share my experiences, my wisdom, my community of mentors. Like I just love sharing. I always say that I feel like I'm a walking billboard for good. Like if I learn something that has changed my life or is awesome, a tool, whatever, I just want to shout it to the rooftops and tell everybody about it. And so Simple Green Smoothies was that for me, for a little bit because I'd lost 27 pounds in 3 months. I was like, everybody needs a blender. Everyone needs to blend spinach and kale. But I realized, if you ask me now, am I passionate about green smoothies? I would say no. Like my passion is just helping people. And I am just on this constant journey and quench for like more learning. Like I'm so curious. I just want to keep learning and then keep sharing and then learning the next thing and then sharing that with the people. So I think a part of my gift is, taking in a lot of information and resources and sharing it with other people who don't have that insatiable appetite to learn so much about certain things.
Yeah. I mean, even from potty training.
Yes.
From potty training, when you're like, I've done this, and so I can help make it easier along the path for someone. So will you speak to what you're doing now in terms of your mastermind and your workshops and the blend? I have another question I want to ask. I'm mentally putting a pin in it, but the blend of life and business, because we talk about this, both of us talk about this a lot with each other and with other people too, but like, you don't just want to talk about here, create your opt-in and your landing page, but you also don't only want to talk about the relationship and lifestyle piece. So talk about like your take, your filter, your perspective on blending the two and serving the whole entrepreneur.
Yeah. So I always say that I believe that there's a whole woman behind every business. And that's just my experience because I'm in a lady body, lady meat suit, whatever you want to call it. And it's just a holistic way of living that we don't ignore any one part. And I know that makes me not as like, people are like, the riches are in the niches or whatever. But I think for where I am in my stage of my life, and you can call me out on this because I'll still get caught in the swirl of like, I've got to hyper focus on this one thing, but I just want to be fully expressed and I want to support people in being that fully expressed part of themselves where we can integrate our business life with our personal lives. And that's part of the coaching and the mentoring that I do. Like some of the wins that my women have are like, I'm going to hot yoga 4 times a week and I'm volunteering in my kids' classroom because it's like, that's why I became an entrepreneur, because I get to volunteer in my daughter's classroom. I get to take a day off of work and just be home with my child when they're sick. And so sometimes we forget that when we get caught up in the busyness of business that we're like, my kid's out of school today, and it's like, no, this is why you built the business this way, to integrate those personal parts of yourselves or to have that time for yoga. Or my husband and I went to an Orange Theory class last Monday, like unplanned. And that feels really good to be able to do something like that together. So it's that flexibility and being able to bounce in between those parts of ourselves from personal to professional. And when I have my clients celebrate their wins, I'm like, celebrate your personal wins as well as your work wins. So we're not ignoring those pieces of ourselves, because I think sometimes we try to just be in this one zone and then we're not our whole selves there. And so how can we be our whole selves in both parts of our lives? And so I work in front of Zoe sometimes and I'm like, I love what I do. Or I'll be like, oh, I'm so tired. I had a lot of clients today, but just communicating what I'm up to in the world with her, I think is a really important part of that.
Well, let's make a mental note to also link in the show notes your podcast episode with Elizabeth D'Alto, mutual friend, who recently shifted the name of her podcast. At the time, it was Untame Yourself. But I loved just the stories and perspectives you shared on parenting, Zoe, in that episode. So definitely, listener, you need to check that out to get more of Jadah, because that was just I just loved hearing your take on that and your experiences. So, okay, let's talk about what I put the pin in to remember is when we were on our girls trip in Sausalito and we were talking about how we build and we feel like, okay, business, cool, it needs to be great. And here's my potential. And oh crap, I can actually really do this thing. And so now I have to make sure that I'm meeting this goal and this metric and that metric, without really examining like what we might already be living the dream and being grateful for where we are. So can you share more on that and how you're like the travel and the Disneys and all of the things, and just realizing like you've got a good gig right now and it's okay to continue to want to expand. That's the purpose of life here, right? To continue to expand, but it's also totally okay to appreciate this current season that you're in.
Yeah, thank you. That was a really big aha for me in some journaling a couple months ago, where we are always striving for more revenue goals, more this, more community, all of that. And I was like, hold up. I am already living the life that I want to live right in this moment, which is to be able to spend time with my family, to travel. One of our family goals is to go to every Disney theme park in the world. And in the last few years, we've gone to Disney Paris, Tokyo, Shanghai, obviously Orlando and Los Angeles. And the one that we have left is Disney Hong Kong. It's the only one. We even went to Disney's Aulani, this past Christmas time. And it's that of like, I have this flexible schedule where I get to, have lunch with my husband in the middle of the day. I'm masterminding with amazing, brilliant business women and just having so many conversations. I have time to have board game nights with friends, and I watch football and basketball and UFC fighting now. Like, it's just wild. And I watch a lot of Netflix, and I'm just like, I have everything that I need. So anything else is just like a cherry on top, and I don't have to strive for more. And my mission right now isn't about growing like millions of followers or even hundreds of thousands. I am on a mission right now to just help 1,000 women reach their 1,000 true fans. And I can link to I forgot his name, the guy that originally wrote this article about 1,000 true fans, but that's really all you need to build and create the work that you want to do in the world. And so I can make that 1,000,000-person impact by creating ripple effect impact. So if I can help 1,000 women help 1,000 people, then we're helping 1,000,000 people collectively. And that's really where my heart is in this moment, is that it doesn't have to be so big, and I don't have to lean on so much public visibility. So I'm actually hosting mastermind workshops and retreats in my own backyard in San Francisco, California, somewhere in the Bay Area, where I don't have to get on a plane to do my work. When I get on a plane, I actually get to like unplug, disconnect, and just be with my family. And I've been calling them playcations. Like last year, we went to Cuba and China, Australia, Bali, and then Kauai for 2 weeks and Hawaii for a week when my husband ran his 26.2-mile marathon. Yay, and I know, and like that, like last year, like that life is enough. And one of my good friends who passed away a couple years ago, Scott Densmore, that was a conversation that we talked about, like, what is enough? And why are we creating all these goals and metrics and numbers to reach? It's like, if we can get really clear on what enough is for us, then we know that anything else we do is just extra, and we don't have to keep chasing that. And so George and I are very clear on what our enough revenue to sustain the life that we lived last year, where we're traveling for fun, and I'm leading retreats in my own backyard in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I am craving more in-person heart-to-heart connection. So I've leveraged an online business and digital products, but that is just not the zone that I'm in right now. I want to like hold and squeeze people. I want to make eye contact. And as I said, technology is increasing and connection is decreasing. And so we are so hungry for human connection right now. And so that's really what like leading with love looks like, is how can we integrate not just our personal and professional lives, but how can we integrate our digital and our offline lives?
Yes. Oh my gosh. So you just totally set the table for a delicious menu of conversations that you will continue, and trust, dear listener, on your behalf. Anytime we're exchanging Voxes, I'm like, oh, that could be a podcast episode. That could be a podcast episode. So I'm over there being your advocate to be like, you need to share that in more detail, please. Thank you. I would like to currently order an episode where you break down your World Domination Summit experience. I just want to make a little personal request there.
Love it.
There's so many parts of your story that you can dive into. And I love that you did opt to go with lead with love as opposed to love over metrics, so that you can encompass just the whole conversation and giving yourself freedom to talk about what you want to talk about. This is your show. So you did it, Jadah. You have an episode in the bag, baby. Woohoo! This has been really great. And again, I know that you're just getting started, and I'm super grateful to have you in my life, and now to be able to have you in my podcast app with your own channel of expression. And I just want to thank you for being who you are in the world and for putting yourself out there in this way so more people can get to know sides and stories of you that I have been able to know for years. And thanks for letting me pick your brain today.
Thank you. Thank you. We did it. Thank you so much for your heart and attention in listening to Lead with Love. If this message, leading with love in life and business, and remembering the humans and beating hearts behind the numbers and all of that good stuff, I would love for you to take the time to leave an honest review. It would mean the world to me, and it also helps more people find out about the goodness and helping spreading more love in the world, which we really, really need. So I would really appreciate that, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.